roles chose. Salut!
Salut!
Glory to Guyana.
Glory to Guyana.
I don't know if I'm from Guyana. Oh no, I'm not from Guyana. I'm from Jamaica. Glory to Jamaica.
Jamaica, Jamaica.
Why did you sing that to the tune of Hips Don't Lie? Jamaica, Jamaica. Oh baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad.
I mean, it fits though, doesn't it? So that's why I did it.
I mean, the
So
Jamaican
does-
hips do not in fact lie.
The Jamaican hips do not lie. Question number 4.
Yeah, one of the things my uni does quite well is we have a lot of experiences of devising and creating our own work. But obviously that's within a uni environment where it's what we're being told to do. But if we are wanting to go down the route of making our own work... Sorry, I need to clear my throat.
He's a professional.
I'm a
It's
professional!
first time with us on video.
If we're wanting to go out and just really start creating and selling our own work, what are the first steps for that in terms of actually making it a reality professionally? What are the first steps to really make that happen?
So recently I've been doing my DYCP project that I got funding for, and one of the big things that I learned from that to start off with is when it comes to creating your own work as an actor, making sure that the work is coming first. It can be a really easy trap as a performer to be like, I'm not working at the moment, I want to be in something, so I'm going to make this thing and everyone will come to it and see how amazing I am, and then I'll get cast at whatever place or in whatever show, or it'll get picked up by Netflix or something. That works for some people, like Michaela Cole and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but firstly, those were like long processes. Like, I saw Chewing Gum Dreams at the National, I want to say in 2010.
Jesus.
That's been around for a long time.
The play she originally wrote had been around for a while before it was made into a series on Channel 4. Obviously it was adapted and changed a lot, and then obviously she did I May Destroy You. I don't know the story of Fleabag, but I imagine the story is pretty similar. I don't think Phoebe Waller-Bridge wrote it in 6 weeks and then all of a sudden she was famous. So A, that is a long-term strategy, and B, it's not guaranteed to work. Especially if, I mean, you're talking more about collaboration, so it wouldn't just be you, and devising wouldn't just be you, but for the sake of argument, just to carry on the example, if you wanted to do a one-person show, tour it around some places or take it to a fringe festival or whatever, it might be the best show ever, but it might not go further than that initial outing because of funding and stuff, which we'll get on to how you go about doing that kind of practical side in a second. If you don't care about the story you're telling or what the story you're telling with your collaborators, and it's literally just an exercise to try and further your career, and that doesn't happen, it's just going to be frustrating and disappointing. Whereas if you care about the story you're telling, even if it doesn't end up being a Fleabag or a Chewing Gum Dreams, you will have enjoyed the experience of making it and feel fulfilled in the process of making it.
I would also like to add to that as well, Pisser, the show that I did in February this year, 2022.
Great show, saw it.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it thoroughly.
I couldn't see it because I was on tour.
I wrote the first draft of that in 2017. So things do not always, and sometimes it just needs that much time to get to a point where you're ready to do it. And if I may tee in a little bit into the making your own work side of things as well, because I kind of feel like this is something I can talk about.
Yeah, of course.
Is that it's a very good way to, like I said earlier on, know the kind of work you want to make both artistically and practically, but it also gives you a better idea as to what actually happens in order for a show to go from a concept to happening to begin with. Because a show is a tangible thing. But the thing about actors is that actors are trained to come in really quite late in the process, because by that point in a musical you have your book, you have your lyrics, the arrangements are done. There is so much work that is finished and is a given that you will just be given it. You'll be given the finished product.
Sort of slotted in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unless you're coming in the workshop stages to help workshop that stage.
Exactly.
But if it's
for new actors,
we have a
you won't
job.
be. For new actors, you will not have had the background or the experience. I don't mean to sound disparaging.
Or the contacts.
Exactly.
Unless you're going into drama school already knowing some musical theatre writers, then maybe.
And I don't mean to sound disparaging when I say this at all, but for most actors, especially for people who may or may not have contacts, that's one thing, absolutely. But if you do not have that background in development, then you won't be there for the workshops, you won't be there for the dummy runs, you won't be there for the proof of concept meetings, you won't be there for that. That's just something which you will not be involved in. And it's very easy to look at big shows nowadays which have been around for so long that they're practically in the memory of 3 or 4 generations, that those shows are very much the result of work that took place decades ago. But the work that, especially someone like me, does at my end of things, and that you would have to do to get your own work up, is not the same process that would have happened for those shows. They wouldn't have come from the same place funding-wise, or the same place even just the people making it was. And that's something which is important to remember. And those shows are big commercial hits at this point. Artistically speaking, their value is debatable, unfortunately. I know it may sound controversial, but it shouldn't be. But the fact is that they've been there for so long now that they aren't really seen as being the big milestones in how theatre has moved forward in the past 40 years. They've just been there for so long that they are very much just the cornerstones of familiar faces.
They're kind of like canon, aren't they?
They are.
Chicago.
And not necessarily canon for what our generation needs to make, if that makes sense. They aren't what the sort of thing we shouldn't. I mean, this may sound a little bit irreverent, but we shouldn't look at things like Phantom Les Mis, Chicago, and say that's what we should be making. That, especially for us as 3 minutes.
They broke ground when they were made.
Yes.
In the same way as South Pacific broke ground when it was made. Oklahoma broke ground when it was made.
Dreamboats.
But if you're Dreamboats?
Not Showboat.
Showboat, yeah, Showboat broke ground. But if you were gonna write something like Oklahoma today, it would feel very antiquated and dated, and like you're not doing anything new. What's going on?
And also, you wouldn't be talking to anyone who is young today either.
And I think also the same with, like, I know, have we had a conversation about jukeboxes? But anyway, this household, me and Josh, we don't have the best opinion of jukebox musicals.
We're not a jukebox musical household.
We're not a jukebox musical household. But Mamma Mia and We Will Rock You were groundbreaking in the way they defined what a jukebox musical can be.
Yeah, you didn't have to put much effort into them to make loads of money. Sorry, what? No. Before Mamma Mia and We Will Rock You, jukeboxes were like, this is a biopic about the band. And even if you had like a band that didn't have an interesting story, you were using their songs, so it had to be a biopic. Mamma Mia and We Will Rock You changed that. And actually, well, I can't speak for Mamma Mia because I haven't seen the show, but I've seen We Will Rock You, and it's a fun ride. Like, yeah.
I kind of like We Will Rock You. It's cheesy as feck, and it's probably not the most artistically amazing thing ever, but I like it.
That's how I feel a bit with Unleash.
Well, okay, we can agree on something. The idea of taking pre-existing songs and writing an original story is not this big groundbreaking thing anymore because we've done it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the point you're making.
Yeah, pretty much that.
That's the first 2 points: is make sure that you're making the work for the work and not as a means to an end to further your career, because if that doesn't happen, you'll be disappointed. And know that it's going to be a longer process than we as actors tend to be privy to. In terms of practicality, the big thing, if you're serious about wanting to make your own work, is learning how to do funding applications.
Yes. And if I can jump in here as well, this is one of the other factors, is that actors are very much taught their skills in a bit of a vacuum. So you know there's like producers and writers and composers and MDs, like, and that's kind of,
we don't get taught what they do.
But what I mean in that is that you know that they're going on, but it's going on up here somewhere, and eventually it will reach you. If you want to start making your own work, you will need collaborators. You will need people who are as willing to turn up as you are to make the project happen.
Either that, or you have to be willing to wear all of the hats.
And that's not something which you should do. Fundamentally, you should not be wearing all the hats, because you can't do all those jobs properly.
Yeah.
Especially with how specialised they all are, and also how much time each one takes.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're kind of trying to be a one-man band in terms of you've written a thing and maybe you're performing in the thing and you're getting the funding applications for the thing, you still need an outside eye on the thing itself. You can't direct yourself. You can, in as far as doing a self-tape, and to a certain extent you can, but when you're creating something that you want to put in front of an audience, make them pay to see, you need an outside eye, in my opinion. Do you have a different opinion?
No, I agree with that. There's something you said in that which I think is really important to remember as well, and this is one for all the actors who are in training now, including yourself, is that your journey up till now has very much been to show you how to perform within certain parameters. But you have to remember that when you're doing this sort of work, it's not just about turning up and waiting for things to happen.
Yeah.
You will have to make decisions.
Yeah.
And you will have, and irrespective of whether or not long term they're the right decision or the wrong decision in the short term, you will still have to make them. And like I said earlier on about the big producers, how they only have to make a handful of a very small number of very big decisions, and that will be something which you will have to deal with. Whereas with actors, you make lots of very small decisions because most of them are about you. They're not about the show at large, and that's a different mentality when you go into it from that side of things.
In a standard job as a performer, if you've got a good director, you have a director to kind of help guide and steer you into the decisions that are good for the macro scale, but you don't necessarily have to worry about the macro scale. You can, and I think good actors do to an extent. At the very least, you definitely have to be mindful about the other people who are on stage with you, who you're sharing the stage with. But you don't have to worry about, what do we want to leave the audience with necessarily. When you're making your own work, you do. Because you need to know who your audience is. You need to know, the story, the themes, blah, blah, blah. And some of that will come organically in the process, especially if you're devising, starting with concepts and finding the ideas that appeal for you and exploring them, and then kind of organically you get to, this is what our show is about. If you're writing, which is, I know that's more Josh's background and that's what I'm working on, it's explorative writing or researching a topic and then being like, what interests me? Why am I writing about this? And then that's what you make.
One of the big things actually is there's the 4 whys, which are worth mentioning here, I think, even if it is just offhand. And that's why this, why here, why now, and why you. Performers and actors, for the most part, why you tends to be, well, I got lucky. That's the audition narrative that you're taught to follow. When it comes to making it, the why you has to be, why am I the right person to do this? And that's a very important lesson. And I'd say that's the difference between people who can create their own work and those who need someone there to help them make it. People who just know why they're doing it will always find a reason. It might not be one that everyone agrees with, it might not be one that you yourself immediately completely understand, but it will be there. But if it's a case of going, I'm making it, like Michaela said earlier, because I don't have anything else going on and I may as well do something, that's not a valid answer. At that point, you may as well go into banking. At that point, you may as well go into...
You can literally do anything. If that's your solution, you'd probably be better off being like, what classes can I take? Should I just practice self-taping every day for an hour?
Where can I get therapy?
Where can I get therapy?
Exactly.
Exactly. There are other things that you can do with your time that is going to be more useful. Even just like writing to more casting directors or what, because the amount of effort you need to put into making your own work, like you need to be passionate about it, otherwise it will fizzle out. And that's not the only reason things can fizzle out. It might just be because you just don't know how to proceed forward, and that's a different issue, because obviously we're performers first, we want to perform, so it can be hard to get out of the mentality of like, I'm making something for me to perform. The thing that I'm learning is if you get used to not thinking in that way, and then you can come.
I'm so proud of you.
But I think you can then come back to it, because I can imagine I don't think I'm there yet, but I can imagine a future where I can think of a character and write a play about that character, look at that play as a separate thing, and then be like, is this something that I could theoretically play? Maybe. But I wouldn't start off being like, I need to write myself a one-person play now because I need to write something and I want to be performing. That's not helpful. Devising is a different process, and so I think you'll naturally be part of that, but you shouldn't be devising stuff being like, I want to showcase my skills, so we're going to do this racky movement piece followed by some beat poetry because we're good at that. So, it needs to be what serves the story, what are we exploring, what are we telling, and then practically getting used to writing, what the hell is the word?
Plays?
No, the one with money.
Applications,
funding applications. Yeah, getting used to funding applications and looking for funding applications, because I know you automatically said Arts Council. Yes, Arts Council, But there are other like places, like there was that Studio 3 one that we found the other summer, and there are other like small institution stuff that might have little pools of money where they're like, we're looking for this, that and the other. So like just getting used to that.
Like crowdfunding and stuff as well, isn't there?
Yeah, crowdfunding, and then also in terms of funding applications, I mean, we might get onto this a bit in a second, but like the sooner you start trying to network with producers or whatever, that can be really useful, because often if you can get a producer on board, the producer will do your Arts Council application, because that's their job, is to know how to do those things.
They are
and then
trained to know that.
Yeah, and they'll
how to get that show further along.
Yeah, and they'll put their own pay into the funding application kind of thing. So
Cool.
you know, you don't have to worry about how do I pay this person. It can be like, hey,
Good.
I have this thing.
So if we were to summarise this in 4 key points, I think it's fair to say, as you said, collaborating with your producer, knowing why you're doing it, making sure that you're writing for the reasons, the 4 whys obviously, and most importantly of all, is that knowing it's not just a means to an end and you believe in the project. Wonderful.